Welcome to Hustle and Healing, the Real Talk podcast on pregnancy, postpartum, and motherhood. I'm your host, Jessica Lauser, here for the raw stories, honest laughs, and everything in between. Let's dive in. Alrighty.
Sorry, yawn a lot. I'm sorry. It's not you.
Do you need a coffee? Because I also can get you a coffee.
Maybe
We don't have cream right now. I do have breast milk.
You're good.
I just thought I'd throw that out there.
My goodness, what a friend.
Yeah, we ran out of milk. This is the struggle right now. We ran out of milk. Honestly, mine had something in it. I bet you Rob did put my breast milk
I didn't tell you.
in. Yeah. So I can give you a coffee, but sadly, I only have black.
What time is it? I don't want to drink coffee too early.
Or we can split a Celsius.
Oh, I can do that too.
We're doing a split a Celsius. Pause, everybody. All right. This is the life.
I actually put some breast milk in the bath with Blake the other day because she had impetigo. I don't know how you say it, but just like some skin, it like makes you have like skin sores, but it's contagious, so it like spread.
Oh no.
So it like started on the back of her head, and like we just thought it was like a scab, like she hit her head on something, and then all of a sudden she started getting like little red dots all over her. And then they had like little white heads, and I was like, maybe it's not like, maybe it's acne, but then it like started turning into like almost like sores.
Yikes.
So I got her medicine. I took her to the doctor and got like an antibiotic, and they took care of it. But I did put her in a bath with like a bunch of breast milk that was well over a year frozen. Like I don't think anyone can drink at this point.
But it cures.
Yeah,
cures all.
It's supposed to be good for like everything. So.
Well, cheers to our start.
Cheers.
We'll welcome everyone to the Hustle and Healing podcast. We have JD Cummings with us today.
Hello.
So, JD, we were talking about daycare at first. You were saying your daycare always is kind of calling and...
Yeah. So, I mean, we met at the gym, but our kids went to daycare together at Miss Angel's, and we really liked it there because it's like family run. And now the one that we go to, because we moved, is like more corporation run. So some of the policies that they have to follow are like a little more stricter. And literally anytime the kids like fall and scrape their knee, bonk their head, like anything like that, they call us, and they're just like, oh, just calling to let you know. But like every time I see them calling, I think I'm gonna go have to pick them up. So it's like kind of causes more stress because I just see the number on my phone and I'm like, oh God, what now?
Yeah.
And then they also have like this, if they're sick or whatever, if they have a fever, like they have thresholds. And so I feel like even with Blake having the impetigo, they called and they were like, yeah, it looks like it's spreading, you need to come get her, you can't bring her back till you get a doctor's note. And like thankfully I was able to get an appointment with her doctor that day. Last time I like took her to an urgent care, and we were there for like 5 hours, and then the doctor was like, yeah, it's probably just something viral, we can't really do anything, and then here's the doctor's note. And I was like, good God, like that just ate up an entire day.
Yeah.
So I miss Angels.
I know that's stressful too, because luckily you had the flexibility to be able to go and spend, right? Because it's probably during the weekday, 5 hours out of your day.
Yeah. So I actually can't have my phone at work, but they do have my office number. So sometimes whenever it's just like a boo-boo or whatever, and they call and just let me know, they'll leave me a voicemail. If not, then they'll try to call like my husband, or they'll call my office. But I work 50 minutes away. And so the first time they called me because she had a rash, I literally had dropped her off and like got into work. It was the same thing this time. Now I think of it, I was in gate traffic. They were like, I couldn't go anywhere. I was stuck in gate traffic. And I was like, well, I'm already here. I'm going to at least go in my office and grab my laptop, and then I'm leaving. So I literally like drove 50 minutes and drove 50 minutes back to go pick her up.
That's hard.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
I know. So you have 3 girls?
Yep. So my stepdaughter is 8, and then Kinsey will be 4 in May, and Blake will be 2 in May.
Mm-hmm.
So all the girls. And then we are ready for another one.
Okay.
Fingers crossed it's a boy. Although we already have all the girl stuff. So at this point, like, I mean, it'd be okay. But
I know, it's like you're prepared. You always hope. I mean, after 3, sometimes I feel like you do hope for the other. And then some people are like, we're just looking for a 4th. Because that was my thing was, there's no way that, I mean, we got really lucky. We had a boy and a girl. And we're probably done. But we also have friends who had 3 girls, and they tried, and they're the 4th girl.
Yeah. I have 3 older brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And then my husband has an older sister, which I know, like, it really doesn't matter. It's more, I guess, on his side than anything. But I have been hoping for a boy from the very first one. I had severe gender disappointment with Kinsey. Mm-hmm. So with Kinsey, it was 2020, like end of 2020 when I found out I was pregnant. She was born in 2021. So there were still policies in place because of COVID. So when I went to my anatomy scan, the 20-week one, Bryce met me there, like took off the morning from work, met me there, and they wouldn't let him in the room. And I lost it. Just, I mean, I think I would lose it now. I believed at the time I was like, I was pregnant and hormonal, but even now that would piss me off. So, you know, we were going to find out the gender, and I was like, I want to find out together. Because she asked me, she's like, well, do you want to know what the gender is? I'm like, well, I did, but now, like, I don't know. Like, I want to find out with him. So she wrote it down on a piece of paper so that we could open it together. Mm-hmm. So he waited for my appointment to be over. And then we were still like, we went to like the imaging lab because you can get like print offs. So we were sitting there waiting, and we opened it, and it was like, it's a girl. And then I started crying. So I was already heightened emotionally, you know, wise. But like, I think just as a girl who has 3 older brothers, in my mind, I feel like every girl should have an older brother. Mm-hmm. But then, like, obviously he has an older sister, and like, you know, he's fine. Like, it's not really that important. It's just what I know.
Sure.
So then, and everything in my body, you know, just maybe I like mentally thought it through. I'd like, it just feels like a boy. It just feels like a boy. It was not a boy.
How long do you think it took you to kind of like come to terms?
Yeah. So then I left my appointment, and I like had to go to work, but I went to the exchange first, and I like went in and I started like looking at baby clothes for the first time. And I picked out a cute little like girl outfit, and I was like, okay, I guess this will be fine. So I guess that's when I came to terms. And then with my second, they did like the blood test at my doctor's office. And then they called me and they're like, hey, your results are in. I just want to let you know before you look at them that it does show the gender. So if you don't want to know, don't look at them. Right. I was like, okay. And so then I just called Bryce, and I was on the phone with him. And I was like, so do we want to know? He's like, yeah, I want to know. Let's go. Let's look at him. I was like, it's a girl. He was...
Then you were excited too?
Yeah. The mailman just came.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, it's a girl. And he was like, I knew it. I was like, yeah, all right. And it was like, I was more okay with it that time.
Do you feel like you prepared yourself to say like mentally, this is a girl, this is a girl? So if it was a girl, there wasn't that gender disappointment, or, you know, subconsciously, like it was already kind of there?
I don't know, because I also had I felt like I had different symptoms in my first trimester, and I was like, well, maybe this is a good sign. Like, maybe this means it'll be a different gender, because they say, you know, like you're less sick with boys, or I don't know, whatever they say, the old ones,
all the myths, yeah,
all the myths that are not factual. So I still was like hoping it would be a boy.
But when you had talked about like having been pregnant during COVID, I was in that same boat. And that was so hard to go through all of those appointments. No significant other, you're going in alone, you're, you know, and it's like, that was your first.
Yeah.
So I know for me, then having a second, I was like, oh, this was nice. You know, my husband could come in for these, but then it was almost a little bit more stressful because then like I kind of got used to like going to the appointments by myself. I just had to worry about me. And then the second time I was like, wait, we have to now incorporate his schedule and if he can go.
So with my first, like he was able to come to like the initial appointment and then I did all the follow-ups on my own. And it was kind of like that with my second. But with my second, I found out I was pregnant when I was overseas on a deployment. I say deployment. It was only like a 70-day thing. So like I knew going into it, like this is short enough that like, you know, if we get pregnant, then it's fine, like whatever. So, but by the time I came back stateside and had my first appointment, I was already like 14 weeks. So I was already like starting the second trimester. And that was a really messy appointment. So it was on base because I didn't have, so it was on base, which I had gone on base for my first and it was fine. But the clinic I went to, they closed down. So I had to go to a different base clinic. And when I got there, again, Bryce took off work to come and meet me. And we get there and they were like, oh, so sorry. One of our doctors had to go work somewhere else today. So we're running about 90 minutes to 2 hours behind. And again, I freaking lost it because I was like, this is unacceptable. Like, you're asking us to take hours out of our day to sit in a waiting room because you guys didn't plan properly. Like, you could have called me and said, hey, do you want to push your appointment back or like let's reschedule? Like, I'm not going to sit here, and neither is he. He can't. He has to go to work. Like, so then they're like, well, what do you want us to do? And I was like, I want a referral to go off base to like go somewhere else. So then I got an appointment. I had to call around and say like find who was accepting new patients, which at the time like there really wasn't, or they just didn't have appointments available for like a while.
Yeah.
Like, well, like I'm already like in my second trimester. Like I should probably have an appointment soon. So I found someone, and then he was able to come to that. But then like my checkups, my every like monthly checkup or whatever, he didn't really come to those. And then I switched OBs at like 35, 36 weeks because I was realizing that the OB I was seeing was like VBAC tolerant, but she wasn't like VBAC supportive. So what I mean by that is she was like, yeah, I'll let you, we'll come back to those words. I'll let you go until 39 weeks. And if you don't go into labor naturally, then we will schedule a C-section. But she delivers at Chesapeake Regional. And she's like, but if I'm not the doctor on call and you show up at the hospital, some of the other doctors there don't support VBAC, so they might do a C-section. So I was like, if I am in labor and I walk into a hospital, you're not going to let me continue labor. Like they would still want to do a C-section. She was like, yes. Wow. And I was like, that's bizarre. And also like babies are born healthily between, 36 weeks and 42. So like you're telling me I get till 39 and a half, like that's a lot of pressure for someone to feel to like try to go into labor naturally.
Right. And it sounds like game day decision.
Yeah. Yeah. So then I was like, well, I'm going to see if I can find a different OB that's like going to be a little bit more relaxed with this. So whenever I switched to the different one, they wanted to do an ultrasound, just like their own people.
Sure.
Or because I hadn't had one since 20 weeks and here I was 35, 36 weeks. And so when they did that one, that's whenever they realized that Blake had hydro something or another, which just means extra fluid in her brain. And then they like told me that, but they didn't really know why. So then I was like that person leaving the ultrasound, like bawling her eyes out, which was like terrible. Like no one wants to be that person. So that was really terrible to like be alone because I just thought it was like another appointment.
Yeah.
I definitely wish that Bryce would have been there, but we didn't know anything was not normal. So then we the following week they scheduled us with like the anomaly clinic that like specializes in it.
Yeah.
And so he went with me to that appointment, and then that's when they were able to tell us about the agnesis of the corpus callosum. So the corpus callosum is a bundle of nerves that connects the right and left hemisphere in the brain, and helps you with like coordination and thoughts, a lot of things, right? So agnesis means like it's missing. So she does not have that bundle of nerves. But then when you start looking into that, there's like such a range of effects that can come from it. So there's like people go their whole life and don't even know that they have this, or I guess in theory don't have this, like they have this condition. Or there's people that like have seizures and are severely disabled or developmentally delayed, and like so there's like this whole range, and you just don't know until like baby's born. So that was stressful. Yeah, like because we just didn't know, and they don't know like what caused it, like all of this stuff.
And it leaves you going down just that rabbit hole.
Yeah,
like the worst case scenario in anything. Because I feel that too, because Josie had like a little calcium buildup on one of her valves early on, and they were saying that could be a marker for Down syndrome. But like, you know, we could have done the blood test, and I was like, well, I'm not going to change anything of the pregnancy, even if she does have, you know, Down syndrome. But it was the unknown, and I guess I could have just done the blood test and found out right then, but we opted out of it, and eventually, you know, they just kind of did like some extra ultrasounds, and it over time, they said it's natural for that calcium buildup to just kind of fade away. Yeah. And that's what ended up happening during the 4th trimester. But you just like go down that rabbit hole of like worst case scenario, like, you know, is my baby going to be healthy? And what does that look like? So that seems really scary.
Yeah. So that we went through that, and then, but it didn't change anything. Like they were still like, but you were still like, we still support a VBAC for you.
Now, did you call and explicitly ask offices this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would call and be like, do you support VBACs, and are you taking clients?
Because those conversations, like thinking you saw your original provider at what, 15 weeks, and then there was no discussion leading up until now 35 weeks. Like if
I think there was discussion about it. I just didn't feel the pressure until we started getting closer. And then I started feeling like at the time I was like, I did a C-section. If I have to do another one, it's no big deal. But then I was like, no, I really want to try for VBAC. So, and I was like listening to different podcasts. There's a podcast, the VBAC podcast, or you know, there's a bunch of different ones. And I started listening to it, and I started reading more about it and learning more about like the risk of VBACs, but also the risk of repeat cesareans. And I knew that we potentially wanted to have more kids. So like the more C-sections you have, the higher the risk goes. And then I was like, well, I think that I would be really disappointed if I didn't at least try.
Yeah.
And so then that's whenever I started like searching for a different doctor.
But you had to dig for that information. It wasn't that they came out to say like, hey, this is what we support, this is what we don't support.
No, you have to like ask about it. But then with Kenzie, and the reason I guess she was a C-section. So before she was born, my husband and I did a hypnobirthing course, and we did it virtually with a British lady that has her own podcast and her own lessons. And are you familiar with hypnobirthing?
I'm not. That's why I'm really excited. I'm staring so intensely. Like, tell me more.
So the name hypnobirthing sounds like very woo, right? But it's not. It's really just going back to the way that people naturally give birth, and by mammals, the way mammals give birth. So when a dog or a cat goes into labor, they go and hide under a bed because it's dark, it feels safe, and they're unobserved, which allows their body to just naturally do what it's supposed to do. That's how people give birth in third world countries, right? Like that's how people gave birth 3,000 years ago. They just did it, right? Their bodies know what to do. Our bodies are literally made for this. So hypnobirthing is kind of that physiological side where it's like getting your head in the right mental state so that you're not scared of birth. Because whenever you're scared, your body's going to release adrenaline, right? But when you're giving birth, your body needs oxytocin. That's what helps your body like move. So, and it can't do both, right? Because adrenaline's like that fight or flight reflex, whereas oxytocin is like you're calm, you're happy, right? So Hollywood dramatizes birth. They always make it seem like it's like the most painful thing you'll ever go through in your entire life. And like, maybe it is, but also it's always like they're laying on their back in a hospital bed with 1,000 people around them.
Right.
And
5 students.
Bright lights shining in your face. And there's even history, I can't remember what king it was, but like women used to just give birth, and then one king decided that he wanted to see a woman give birth, but instead of like making him potentially have to like kneel down to see a lady like laboring on all fours or standing up, they made her lay on a bed. And then that's what started this whole giving birth on your back, which if you think about it, is like, you wouldn't take a shit on your back. That's not a natural position. That doesn't, gravity doesn't do anything, right?
Yeah.
So, and I mean, it might be comfortable for some people. And then when you look at things like having an epidural, right? Like, you kind of have to, if you don't have the strength to like hold yourself up with an epidural.
Yeah.
You know, that's how you give birth, right? So it's just over time has developed into this thing where it's like a procedure, a medical procedure, but giving birth is not a medical procedure.
Well, you have to fight for something different. You know, if you're comfortable, you've done your research to want to labor on all fours, or you want to do, it's kind of like this uncomfortable, like controversial, like this is what I'd like, or you know, you kind of hesitate. People
like don't know that there's options. They're just told what to do.
Right. So through your so I'm really interested in this hypno. So what did you learn through the course?
So throughout the course, she talks about like what the body actually does during birth. So all the ways the body like prepares and moves. So just the science of it. These are like what your muscles are doing. This is what's happening when a contraction is happening. This is when things are lengthening. Or this was like 4 years ago, so I don't remember all of it. Right?
Did you use any of the because at some point something switched because you wanted to do the hypno birthing, but then you ended up getting a C-section?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get there. I mean, we can go there now.
No.
Yeah. So, and then there's like the different tactics or things you can do. So even if you have to be in a hospital room, like playing music that you like, you know, having smells, you know, that's very important. Like things that make you think of home, like your own pillow, wearing your own clothes instead of a paper hospital sheet. Like just different comforts that can make it feel like a better experience for you.
Snacks. Your own snack.
Oh my God.
When I went in, it was interesting. I had 2 different people tell me, here's the broth. This is the only broth that you can have right now. I hadn't,
which was like
any medication. I had nothing.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, why can't I eat any food at any point right now? And then another person came in and said, oh, you can snack up until X amount of time. And I'm like, I just want to make sure you guys understand you have 2 different people in the same hospital that are not giving the same information.
Yeah.
Right now, if I was at risk for needing to go in for some kind of procedure, and obviously things happen, like you don't know what is going to happen in labor. So maybe I did need to go, and you have a higher risk of aspiration and things during surgery. However, you guys should probably figure out, can I eat my snacks or can I not eat my snacks?
Let me ask you this. If someone leaves a restaurant after eating a full meal and they get shot and have to have surgery, are they not going to do their surgery because their stomach's full? So if you have to have a C-section, are they not going to give it to you just because your stomach's full?
Right. And we're not eating full meals. I'm like, I just need a little bite of something. So yes, snacks. Yeah. I brought snacks.
Yeah. So my experience, obviously, in my head, I'd like done all these mental things. I tried to prepare. You go through different mantras or things just to keep your head in the right spot. So like even though doctors and people are coming in and out of the room, like you can have your spouse talk to them to try to like keep you in a good mental state so you're not getting frustrated or scared or anything like that. So really like the idea of it, right? And then when it was my like 38-week appointment, and I remember like being really tired at work that day, and I was like, I'm gonna leave early, but my appointment wasn't until like 1:30 in the afternoon, so this was like around 11, and I called them and was like, hey, is it possible for me to come to my appointment early? I'm just like, I'd really like to go home and take a nap. Well, she was like, yeah, let me put you on hold and I'll find out. She never got back to the phone. So I hung up and I went home and I took like a 30-minute nap. And this was probably bad on me, like, because then I had to get up and drive back to base. And that 30-minute nap, I like felt worse afterwards because it was so short.
You weren't like, let me call back?
Yeah. I think I did try calling back, but no one answered. And I was just frustrated. So then I get there and no one's at the front desk. So I like kind of look in the window and then someone sees me and she's like, we've been waiting for you. And I was like, well, my appointment's not for another 10 minutes. She's like, no, I thought you were supposed to come earlier. And I was like, no one ever got back to me. So at this point, I'm just like irritated. Clearly I get irritated easily with other people. So then I go in and I take my blood pressure and it's high. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. Y'all just pissed me off. I'm really angry right now. And they're like, okay, so we'll give you some time. We'll try to get you relaxed. We'll go through this appointment. And then they take my blood pressure again and it's high. And then the doctor's like, okay, so with your blood pressure being high and you being this far along in pregnancy, like these are some things we're concerned about. Like you could have preeclampsia. All this stuff could be happening. I'm going to take your blood pressure again, but manually this time instead of using a cuff. But this is after she explained to me all these risks and things. Yeah. So then she takes it again, still high. And she's like, okay, you need to go to the hospital and have some labs done. And then that way they'll be able to tell, because if you have preeclampsia, you'll have protein in the urine, or like they can see if your organs are shutting down or anything like that. And then if not, then they'll just send you home.
Seems like an easy just walk in the park.
Yeah. So then I, call Bryce, I go home, like get my stuff together. I think he met me at the house and then we went to the hospital together. Also, my dog was at the dentist, or my dog had to have teeth surgery and have a tooth pulled. So he was put under. So I had to call my in-laws and be like, can you get my dog from the doctor's office?
Oh God. And then childcare, because you had
yes. And then pick up my, yeah. Oh no, we didn't have my stepdaughter that day. So like we didn't have to worry about that.
One less thing to worry about.
Yeah. So we get to the hospital. At this point, it wasn't even that late. I feel like 5, 6. So we get there and they take my vitals. My blood pressure's calm, like it's come down, still elevated, but it's like come down like a lot. And then, they do the other labs and then they come back in and they're like, there's protein in your urine. We're diagnosing you with preeclampsia, which the only way to fix is to give birth. It's like, okay, how much protein's in my urine? How much protein's in my urine compared to how much was in it before? And like, well, we don't know. We didn't have like a baseline test. Okay. What are the risks if I don't get induced right now? And they're like, well, if you don't get induced and don't deliver your baby, you can die. Okay, but like, what's the risk? Like, what could happen? Like, give me a number.
Right.
And they're like, well, we can't really give you a number. We don't really understand it because it like affects everyone differently. And so we just like don't have that information. But like, if you don't give birth, you can die. I could also die in a car wreck on the way home. Mm-hmm. Like, we take risk every single day. And like, I just really wanted them to tell me that. Like,
you wanted more information to just at least understand.
Yeah.
Like the why. This is a big decision to like, it's your first kid. You're going through all of these things. They see these things every couple hours.
Yes. Yeah. That's a really good point.
So the way that it affects them, and they're doing their job, right? I mean, it's not a hit on them. Like they're doing their job, but the emotional piece, like we have to advocate so much like you were doing in there to ask questions. And it's like, why is it like pulling teeth when you just want those answers?
Right.
So now you're still kind of back and forth trying to get
because we were trying to decide what to do. Because, like, in my mind, I wanted to, like, go into labor naturally and labor at home as long as possible. And then at the last minute, maybe go to the hospital and, like, baby just comes out. Right. Like, that's my mind. Right. When people tell me, like, oh, their water broke at the grocery store, or, like, I barely made it to the hospital and then gave birth in the car, I'm like, that's my dream.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to do it like that.
If only we could pick.
Yeah. So after going back and forth, I was like, well, I, never forgive myself if I go home. This is what I said. I said, am I going to be able to sleep tonight if I go home? Or am I going to be in my mind awake the whole time, worried?
Mm-hmm.
So finally we made the decision, like, yes, I'll be induced.
This is at 37 weeks?
38 weeks. So by this time it's like really late at night. And I was like, but I need to eat. Like, it's like dinner. Like, I have to eat. I get very hangry. So my husband runs out, like, gets some Wawa subs from down the street, brings them back, and they, like, give me some terrible IVs and have to redo them because they were, like, in the wrong spots. And then they started out with, like, the Cervidil, which is like a little pill that you take.
Is it the Cytotec?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I took.
Yes. So
did they do orally or vaginally for you?
I cannot remember. I don't remember. I had to have 2 doses though.
Yeah.
Because the first dose didn't do anything, and then they did it again.
And
also I was like 0, closed, high, like -2 station. Like, I was not giving birth anytime soon.
Yeah.
Part of this, sometimes when I look back, I wonder if I, like, brought it on myself, because in my mind I was like, this isn't what I want. This isn't what I want. And I was like fighting the process every step of the way. Anyway, so they start out with that. After like 8 hours, like, didn't work. And then they decided they were going to do a Foley bulb, which is like where they do the balloon. So they insert that, very painful. That got me from like 1 to 3 centimeters.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that came out, I was on Pitocin. I don't remember when the Pitocin started, but at some point it started, and then that can never end.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they can do breaks, but I'm hooked up to all of the fucking things. Oh my God. All the monitors, everything falling off, everything beeping. Oh, just try to get some rest. Well, they come into my room every 30 minutes. So went through all that. Eventually they broke my water. And when they broke my water, they said, you have 12 to 16 hours to get into active labor. Active labor starts at 6 centimeters. Or that's what's considered active labor. I was at 3.
Oh my God.
So then I just keep existing, and I didn't get to eat this whole time. So I ate right before I started it.
Thank God for those subs.
Thank God. I couldn't eat anything else. So then I was just starving to death and withering to nothing. We were trying different things. I didn't have an epidural, so I could still walk around. I was trying to kind of like curb step, like they brought in like a balance beam type thing, and I was trying to lunge and squat and do different things. And I was like very uncomfortable, but I was never like in pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time I was like doing laps, and one of the doctors was like, you look way too comfortable to be having contractions. And like, I was having contractions, but I didn't feel them.
Yeah.
Like they were not doing much of anything. So once that 12 hours was up after they broke my water, they're like, okay, we're not really getting anywhere. We're going to do a pit break, and then we can turn it back on for a couple more hours. But if not, we're going to have a C-section.
Mm-hmm. And
because at this point,
so stopping the Pitocin for a little bit, is that what?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, can't we just like stop it and let me sleep through the night? Because this was at like 11 o'clock at night. So this happened. It was a Thursday night when it started.
Okay.
At this point, we're at Saturday night. It's been 48 hours of not eating, of all of this, not sleeping really.
And the end goal is still to try to do a vaginal.
Yes, a vaginal delivery.
You're going to have so much energy.
Yeah.
By the time.
So at this point, I like cracked. I was like, I just want this to be over with.
Mm.
And so I was like, I don't need 4 more hours. It's not going to do anything. Like, just do the C-section. So it just, and people kept coming in throughout this time and like talking about it, which when you're trying to deliver vaginally and stay in a good mental state and all they keep saying is C-section, 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 C-section. Mm-hmm. It's like your head starts thinking about it. And at this point, I was like, all right, let's do it.
Did you feel like you ever got like encouragement to kind of continue what you were doing to hit your goal of, yes. You knew because you got admitted.
The nurses and midwives were amazing. They were really good. They would come in and say, hey, let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try to make this baby happen on my shift. Like, let's try to do all these things. Like, they were very good. It was the doctors. They were so pushy and they kept coming in and we need to do this. We need to do this Foley bulb. We need to break your water. We need to do this. Like, they were the ones that I felt like were pressuring me. And like, I didn't really have a choice. Mm-hmm. And going back to like how birthing is now a medical procedure is like a doctor is very overqualified for a birth. Like, you don't need a doctor to give birth naturally, right? But they're there for the emergency situations or because you need a C-section or because you need some sort of medical intervention. Mm-hmm. That's why doctors are there. So for you to just like go to a hospital and give birth naturally, they're like, oh, that's boring. Like, I want to actually do something. I want to do my job. But they are way overqualified just for like natural stuff. That's why people give birth at home all the time, like perfectly fine. They don't have to have a doctor present to do that. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing took 50 hours and it was miserable. But it was all because of the preeclampsia. Like, that's what changed the whole plan, or in my mind, how I had pictured things happening.
And that all happened within, 24 hours. And then it escalated to you have preeclampsia to you need to get admitted to you need to have this baby now.
Yeah.
And like that so fast.
Yeah. So she was born Sunday morning at 2:30 a.m. and the whole thing had started Thursday at like 10 p.m. Mm-hmm. So, but she was born on Mother's Day that year. So she's my Mother's Day baby. So then when I, got pregnant with Blake, I started taking baby aspirin, like immediately, right? Because that's supposed to help with blood pressure. Okay. And so they were like, well, potentially, you could get it again. We don't really know what causes it. So with her, I felt it. I felt my blood pressure was high. Like, I actually did not feel well. Mm-hmm. With Kinsey, I didn't really know any different. But with her, I was like, I don't feel good today. I think my blood pressure is high. And I had to go to my appointments or whatever. And they were like, it's a little high. But this was also after all the stuff we had found out with her head and like her brain development, all this stuff that I was like, stressed about. So I was like, maybe it's just that. And they're like, well, it's probably not just that. But so I was at because of her diagnosis, I had the non-stress test that I had to do. I think they wanted me to do them like 3 times a week. And I told them absolutely not. So we compromised for 2 times a week. And one of those was like, I had to be there for my appointment anyway. I'll do one while I'm here and then I'll come another day. So I was at one of those and they were like, your blood pressure's high. And because you have a history of preeclampsia, like, we can't let you leave.
How many weeks are you here?
I was 38 weeks and I think it might have been right at 38 weeks.
Okay. So you probably were reliving.
Yes. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. But this time they were like, we can't let you leave until a doctor evaluates you. And we can't have a doctor see you because there's no rooms in labor and delivery. So you got to wait here, like in the little area where they do like the non-stress test until a bed becomes available, which was like 3 hours later. So again, I was starving, but Bryce brought me food. So thank the gods. And then I finally got evaluated by a doctor and they did the test and they were like, no protein in the urine, like no reason to think it's preeclampsia.
Mhm.
It's just gestational hypertension. So just high blood pressure due to pregnancy. And I was like, okay, I can live with that. And they're like, but because you're past 38 weeks, we'd really like you to just deliver now. And I was like, no. So I actually signed the waiver, like leaving against medical advice.
NDA.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that was on a Wednesday, I think. And then
AMA, not NDA, against medical leave.
ANA against medical AMA.
Yeah, I forget the terminology, but I just realized I fucked up on that one.
It's something.
NDA.
Yeah, non-disclosure agreement, but whatever.
I slip in here that this is not medical advice. These are just stories.
I don't know. I've watched a lot of Grey's Anatomy, so
We are experts.
basically a doctor. So I left, but the problem was I did not feel well. So then I felt like I was riding a roller coaster for like the next couple of days. Like I didn't go to the gym. Like I didn't feel like I had energy. Like I did not feel good. I almost felt like I was hungover. And I was just like, I had to get a blood pressure cuff to take my blood pressure at home. And it would be like slightly elevated, but it was nothing like skyrocket high. But by like, I think it was like Sunday, I was kind of like, okay, here's the plan. Because again, I wanted to like go into labor naturally, do it all at home. But like, I was like, let's go get induced and we'll give it 24 hours. And if things aren't progressing the same way they did before, give me a C-section. Let's just do it. Let's just get it done. I was not going to do another 50-hour stint.
Right.
So Bryce's like, all right, cool. So
how long did you wait? So now you went home, you were 38 weeks when all that happened. Now where are we at?
I was like 38 and 4 or something like that. Like I was still within 38 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think she was born 38 and 5, or maybe she was born 39. I don't
Tomato. Right.
I just know I left on like a Wednesday and came back on Sunday.
Okay.
And then we just walked in and was like, hi, let's give birth. And they're like, well, we don't normally just like take people. I was like, oh no, I have a prior C-section. So like, and I had high blood pressure. And they're like, oh, okay, I guess you can stay. So
I'm a VIP case.
Yeah. But they were so much better. Like the doctors were so much more understanding and like gave me information, but also like when I told them no, they were like, okay. They didn't like sit there and argue or like try to tell me why I was doing something wrong.
So did you have a different provider with your second?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you switched entire. So now again, because you originally had your initial, then you switched during Kenzie's, and then now you went to your third because you didn't have a good experience with that. Okay.
Yep. So, and it was a teaching hospital too, so there were like different people there all the time, but it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
But like went in, I want to say they didn't do the cervix softener because they won't do it on VBACs because they don't. There's some reason why they can't. Like they don't want. They're like worried about rupture. So that's the big thing with VBACs. That's why people are scared of them. It's because they're worried that the scar is going to rupture.
Okay.
Now the word rupture applies even if if it tears a little bit, you get a paper cut.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, you just ruptured. So like that's how they look at it. Or it could be like something traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But that's why they're worried about it. So there were like certain things they couldn't do because I was a VBAC. So they couldn't do the cervix softener. And then they wanted to do something other than the Foley bulb. There's one where it's like, instead of just one balloon that gets blown up, there's 2. And so it like puts pressure on the cervix from the top and the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow that helps. So they put it in, which they were like very impressed they were able to get it in because I was still so high and closed and everything. And then they came back in and they're like, actually, we can't use that one on VBAC. So we have to take it out and put the Foley bulb in.
Oh, God.
So I had to experience again. But thankfully, it had gotten me to like half half to 1 centimeter. Like it opened up a little bit. So we did that. And then they, again, at some point, like started me up on the Pitocin. And then they came in and they're like, I don't really remember how much time had passed. But they were like, do you want to, break your waters? And I was like, well, what's the time frame? Because last time, this is like what led to like time clock was ticking. And they're like, well, every time you progress, we like reset the clock. So if you go from like 2 centimeters to 3 centimeters, that resets it. And we give 24 hours. So as long as you're like moving along, you can go like however long you want.
Interesting. Because I feel like, and I think this is also the frustrating piece of it, is because no one is getting the same, like, it doesn't feel like anyone's getting the same information.
Yeah.
I was always told, once they break your water, you have X amount of time because infection.
Yeah, I think for them too, though, is like, because it's different, like if you're at home versus being in like a sterile environment. Maybe it's less risk of infection, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But a lot of people playing around doing things down there, like,
yeah,
every time they do a cervical check, you're at risk for infection. Like, so we were like, okay, yeah, let's break the waters. It was like 3 or 4 on like Monday. So it maybe had been 24 hours at this point. We were like, well, things are progressing, just not like fast, but like, sure, let's do it. So they broke my water. This time, within 45 minutes, I was like dying. And Bryce had gone to get me food. And one of the nurses had come in just to check on me. And she was, I think it was like 3 or 4 centimeters. And she was like, so are you thinking you're going to want an epidural? And I was like, I don't think I'm going to make it without one. But I didn't mean necessarily I needed one right there. Well, like 5 minutes later, the anesthesiologist rolls in with their cart. And I was like, oh, we're doing this now. Okay. By the time they got set up and started poking me, I was like, oh my God, I need this so fast. Please hurry up. And thank God I did, because there were like 4 people after me. People kept coming in and being like, okay, I need you. And I was like, oh, thank God I got this when I did, or it would have been like another 4 hours before I got it. So I got it. Things were happening. And they checked me and I was like 4 centimeters. And this was around, I don't know, like 4 or 5 p.m.
Time is not really existent. Yeah. I feel like once you enter, when you entered, maybe a couple hours after, and then the time the baby was born.
Well, I remember it was 6 hours later they came in and they're like, well, let's give you a check. And I was like, okay. I've just been like, I slept. I like took a nap. I ate some food, even though they told me that I couldn't. I did not care. Like, still was just like sandwiches, soup, like whatever. Doctor comes in and she was like, oh, yep, it's time. And I didn't believe her, because I was like, no, that my body doesn't work that fast. She's like, no, it's time. Baby's coming. I was like, oh, okay. I also had a doula who I was excited to have a doula. I was hoping it would be helpful, but it wasn't, I don't know. Maybe it just wasn't a good fit, or like, I just didn't feel like she did a whole lot. But she actually had another client giving birth like 2 doors down from me. So she kept going back and forth. But at this point, she had ended up going home. And so I called her and was like, well, it's time to push. Do you want to come back? So she came back. And they're like, I was like, can I just have like some time? Because even though I was 10 centimeters, I was still like plus, I can't remember what it is, -2, -1. Like 0, and then plus 1, plus 2.
Yep.
I think I was still like plus 1. So it's still like baby had room to come down. And they're like, yeah, we can give you time. So they gave us like 45 minutes to an hour. And then they started like coming in and setting up. And because of her diagnosis, they wanted to have like the pediatrician, team was there just in case, and to check her out immediately after birth. And it's connected to the CHKD hospital, Norfolk Centera. So they had like a team of people there just in case, whatever. So there was like 20 people in my room.
And you're just woo-ha,
all out. Yes. So then I start pushing, and like I realized once we got to this point that like I could feel when I was contracting, because it felt like there was pressure on my butt. Like I felt like I had to poop. There was like pressure on my butt, and I was like, they're like, do you feel that you're contracting? And I was like, oh, that's what that is. Okay. So that's where I felt it. So then I knew when I was contracting when to push. So I think I pushed for like 35, 40 minutes. And then she was born. And
was doula in with you? Did she make it back?
Yeah. She made it back. She was in there. And I didn't feel like I had like the fetal ejection response. Are you familiar with that? So it's when you have to poop, your body ejects, right? When you're going to throw up, you can't stop it. Your body ejects. So when you give birth naturally, they say that like you might not feel it, but there's a fetal ejection response where like the baby's coming, you can't do anything to stop it. So when you're like, I have to push, if they're like, don't push, and you're like, no, I have to, that's your body pushing the baby out.
See, my epidural worked probably too well. I couldn't feel it.
Yeah.
So they were just like, you're having a contraction, push now. And I remember like, okay, here we go. And then
I mean, the pushing never felt bad. Like I never felt like it was hard or hurt. So like my epidural was still working pretty well. When then baby came out and I checked her out and everything, and she was perfectly healthy. And I tore for 2nd-degree tear, so not terrible, right? Like 4th degree is like the worst,
right?
But still not great. They were stitching me up, and I could feel that. Ooh. And I'm like, I don't know why, because I can't feel anything else, but I feel that, and that was not fun.
You're like, I just pushed a baby out. How am I feeling this?
And I'm still hooked up to everything. That epidural is still going because they like gotta get the placenta out. Well, I guess the placenta's already out at this point, but I just don't know how I felt that of all things. But she was, perfectly healthy, and then the recovery was just a lot different. So like C-section recovery, I felt like was pretty good. I know some people struggle with it. For me, I felt like it was really decent. I was able to walk within 24 hours. I was able to walk up and down stairs by the time we got home. I didn't have any issues with that. And then same thing, delivering vaginally, but it was like so much more inconvenient because every time I had to go to the bathroom, it was painful. Like it stung, So like, while C-section recovery sucks, tearing's not great either.
Right.
So, that can be hit or miss based on the person probably, or just what you experience. But like the C-section, I never took like any of the narcotics or anything. Like I took Tylenol.
Yeah.
I did like
the ibuprofen, Tylenol.
Yeah. A concoction or whatever you take like every couple hours. But we did, so Blake was born on a Monday night. It was like, and we had already, whenever they broke my water, we're like, well, we'll just give it 24 hours. If by Tuesday morning, like in the morning, if we wake up and she's still not here, we'll just do a C-section. Because again, I was like refusing to go like 50 hours.
Which is fair.
Yeah. But then she came and we were like, well, shit. We also were like, it'd be cool to have a baby in the morning, not in the middle of the night. Because Kinsey was born at 2:30 and then she was born at like almost 11. And I was like, I'm so tired. I just want to go to bed. Like, why does this keep happening to me?
See, I'm the opposite. I have babies.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I don't know why I feel like it makes a difference, but
well, I think that naturally
the baby doesn't care.
No, babies do not care. I think that naturally you want to sleep at night, so you would think like, hey, little baby, just hang on to the morning, but
yeah.
They do not discriminate.
No, they don't.
Day or night.
Yeah. Well, and then they do the 24-hour check. And they're like, they do it in the middle of the night because it's 24 hours. And then they prick their little foot and do the blood draw. And then they bring them back into you screaming. And they're just like, here you go.
They're okay.
Yeah. Thanks. Love this. So that's always fun. But then we were like ready to go home. And they had released me. But Blake had to go get they did a ultrasound on her head, and they're like waiting for the results of that. Well, so, and then they were like, well, the pediatric neurologist wants to come, like, just talk with you guys, whatever. And so we waited, and we waited, and we waited, and we waited. And the kids, like, Kinsey was at daycare, Natalie was at school, but Bryce had to pick her up off the school bus that day, and he had already told his parents, hey, we're coming home today, you guys can go. So they went back to their house, And I was like, oh, she wouldn't have done that because here we are. It's like 1:30, 2 o'clock, and he's got to pick her up by 3:45. And like we had thought we would like first thing in the morning be out of there, get home, be comfortable, take a nap, like get settled, and then go get the kids and bring them home. And that is not what ended up happening. It was like very frustrating. And eventually we were like, we will sign whatever paper you want us to sign. Like, we're leaving. And then
you just love just leaving.
Ultimately, the neurologist never even came. They were like, oh, yeah, they said they'll just give you a call in a couple months to schedule a follow-up appointment. And I was like, clearly this was not that important. They could have told us that 12 hours ago.
Right.
So,
or like, hey, can we schedule something with you all tomorrow?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was like, that was just really frustrating. So, you know, we finally make it home. We get home, Bryce leaves, comes back, and it's like kids in the face and the baby's face. And it's like, okay, this is it. We're in it now. So that's what it does.
Two totally different experiences.
Yes. Yeah.
And then, so now you're back home, introducing baby to the mix.
Yeah.
And then now you're talking about you want to add a fourth into the mix.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. We love them so much.
I love that. I know they are. I mean,
we've gone back and forth for a while. So Blake and Kenzie are 2 years apart, and we always kind of wanted to have a little bit of a bigger gap, but not like huge.
Yeah.
So, you know, we feel like now is a good time because, like, even if we conceived now, by the time baby was born, Blake would be a good solid like 2.5 going on 3. And with Kenzie, when I brought Blake home, there was a lot of like, she didn't understand why I couldn't like pick her up and hold her and stuff. And I mean, I still did it, but I definitely felt like there was a lot of pressure on, like, I knew when I did it, like my pelvic floor was like sore afterwards. So it was like, oh, I probably lifted her or held her for too long. So I think like having a little bit older, Blake being a little bit older, like maybe she'll understand a little bit better.
Yeah.
Well, but it'll still be a close enough age gap. And she loves babies. She loves babies. And I'm like, see, she would be a good big sister.
Well, and I think that seeing that, it just like warms your heart. And you're like, okay. Because, I mean, there's so many beautiful things about being a mom and being a parent. And it's easy to look at all the difficult things.
Yeah.
About, you know, from pregnancy to birth to when they come out, like, and every experience is different. You know, it's such like a coin toss.
Yeah.
How is it going to be? But, you know, like, I feel like we struggle with, like, how do you know? Like, my mama heart's like, oh, I kind of want one. But then I'm like, man, mentally, like, I want to really kind of get into a spot and just really enjoy the two we have.
Yeah.
But there is still that like back and forth tug. So like, I sometimes question myself, is there ever a time that I really am going to be sure?
Yeah.
Like, I'm ready or I'm not.
Yeah. We went back and forth on it a lot, especially because, like, I mean, there are some days that just, whew.
Yeah.
And Blake's a screamer, and she always kind of has been. She also gets very hangry, very, very hangry. She, like witching hour, like she has to eat by this time or she loses it. And once we kind of figured that out and we started like settling her earlier, you know, things improved and we were like, okay, maybe this isn't so bad. But there was a while there where we were like, we're not doing this. This isn't fun. And I mean, there's still definitely days that, you know, like, I think, yeah, I mean, there's moments. There's not days, but there are definitely moments that are like, this is hard. This sucks. But are we really going to remember this in 20 years?
No.
Or like,
you might remember it, but it's not going to feel so close.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like you never, when you talk to people and they say, you know, do you wish you'd had another one? Like, no one ever regrets having another one. People will regret not having one more.
Yeah. I've heard that.
So
we were at a Mexican restaurant and there was an older lady there and she was just literally eating us. She was eating her food, watching us, and she was just engaging in conversation with us and said, you know what, I wish I would have had one more. And I'm like, I bet you did. 60 years later, you can say that. I'm like, I'm over here with no sleep.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we only know our perspective now. And, you know, it's interesting to hear older, you know, our parents or grandparents being like, you know, if you are in the right financial or mental state and you feel like you want another kid, then yeah, you know, introduce that. And so, you know, we've heard a lot about just the different birthing experiences you had, knowing that you want to get pregnant again. And so you're going to have a third birthing experience. Is there a pep talk that you would give your future self, knowing the experiences you've been through?
Oh, I don't know. Probably just that, like, it gets better and it's not just like, I don't know. That's a good question because I feel like babies are really easy and it's like the toddlers are harder.
Yeah.
Um,
So thinking it from the perspective, I guess, more on your pep talk to go in to prepare yourself for delivery.
oh, yeah. Okay, so that's a good question because I kind of started on that earlier and I'm not sure I finished it. Sometimes I wonder if I over prepared and if by doing so it put me in like a more of a defensive stance because I had friends that were pregnant around the same time I was and they were also induced for preeclampsia and they both delivered vaginally and neither of them took any type of birthing course and they just went in all willy-nilly and just did whatever the doctors told them to do and they didn't fight it. They just accepted it and just let things happen. And I'm like, maybe I messed up because I had this whole plan in my head because I'm a type A person. Like I had this whole plan in my head of like what I was going to do and what was going to happen and how things were going to go. And that like I didn't incorporate enough of like there's so many things that don't go the way you think they are going to go. So many things out of my control that I didn't like account for.
Yeah.
So, but going into a third one, I think that again, I you know, would want to have another VBAC ideally. But I think like if history shows anything, like the odds of me of having high blood pressure again, like having to be induced, probably like realistically could happen again. So I think I would just try to just let things happen more. And then I think it also is like empowering knowing that I've done it both. I've done a C-section and survived. I've done a VBAC and survived. And like, I think that again, I would want to at least try for a VBAC. Like, I don't think that I would just be like, I'm gonna schedule a C-section and just be done with it. I don't want to do that. But again, I would put like that time limit on it. It's like, well, we'll try VBAC, and if it don't work, then C-section. Like, I think mentally I'm okay with that.
I feel like that's fair.
And I think that helped my second time around, knowing that I had the option. I just felt like I had more options, I guess. Like I felt like, okay, being induced isn't the worst thing. If it doesn't work out, I'll just have a C-section. But at least then I was making the choice to have a C-section instead of being told to have a C-section.
Yeah.
And for me, that makes a difference.
I think it makes a huge difference. I mean, for anyone to be able to, we just want the information, at least most people. And for me, it's like, if I know the justification, it makes sense to me. Okay, like I can be at peace with this is what needs to happen because ultimately I want to be safe. I want my baby to be safe and us to get out on the other side. So having that information and being able to say, okay, well, this is what I want to do with this. Like, let's move over here versus you pulling teeth. So now you can, take that information from your first and second delivery to be able to say, hey, you know, I know that, I mean, there's options before Pitocin or there's options before jumping right to, you know, a C-section. And because I know for my experience when I had my second with Josie, I got induced because I was at 40 weeks and I was for sure positive I was going to go early because Trip was 2 weeks early. And I was like, no, they say your second kid goes early too. And that wasn't the case. And then it was interesting because the doctor's office was pushing hey, you should probably get induced. And then I get to the hospital and they're saying, oh, well, you're healthy and why are you here? I don't think, well, your office, the office said that I should probably get induced on, 40 weeks. And at that point, because it was a second kid and I set childcare up,
yeah,
I was like, well, shit, well, this is most convenient. I would have pushed it further if, I didn't have family hours away.
Yeah. Why did the doctor's office tell you that 40 weeks was like, you needed to get induced?
No good reason.
Yeah.
It's just the suggestion. And then because I am such a type A planner, and I was like, well, what do I do with trip?
Yeah,
and so I was like, well, let's do it. But because I wanted to know my options and I didn't want to just go in and feel out of control, like they're just going to do whatever. I then started to research, like, what is it to be induced? Because I wasn't induced with trip.
Yeah.
And that's when I learned about like the cytotech and it's something like that where I've had conversations and people are like, I have no idea what that is. They just gave me, Pitocin as soon as I got in.
Yeah.
And, again, it's just at least having that information to feel empowered to go in there to say, hey, this is what I know. And I was surprised by the doctor. She literally was like, we haven't started anything. You can go home. She was like, and I looked at Rob. I was like, no, we're just doing this thing.
We're out of here.
I got childcare. I was somewhat already dilated, but yeah, cytotech for me, I delivered in 2 hours.
That's great. That's all they did?
Oh, yeah. They thought that I was going to need for 2 doses over an 8-hour span, and that was not the case. And yeah, so
that tells me too that like your body was ready, or very
I was right on the tippy. Yeah, I was on the
very
tippy,
close to just it happening.
So yeah, I love that you have that information now to feel empowered, and it sounds like you found a good physician that supports what you want.
Yeah, I'm hoping I can get back into that same office for the next one. It does stress me out. Like something I said earlier, like my doctor said, I will only let you go to 39 and a half weeks. So that's why I asked if your office was like, we will only let you go to 40 weeks. Like that's a red flag to me. Because people tell me that all the time. Like, oh, my doctor said I can only do this, or I have to do this. It's like, no one can make you get on a bed and have surgery. Like, no one can make you be induced or have any of those. So the biggest thing I like to advocate for is people being informed and making their own decisions and not being bullied into it, pressured into it, or being told you have to do this.
Yeah.
So if your doctor, if my doctor was like, I'll only let you go to 39 and a half, and I was like, or what? And she's like, well, I won't see you anymore. Then you should probably find a different doctor. Like if that's their response, because to me, that's not like how you treat people.
I would want more information. It's not, I'm telling you, it's, hey, let me give this information.
Right.
Because these are my concerns if you go past 39.
But then using that information, let them make their own decision.
Right. Ugh, child delivery, birth, all the things.
Yeah.
Well, JD, I know I learned information today. I really appreciate you coming and chatting with me, and hopefully our listeners had a fun episode. So until next time, appreciate you coming to our podcast, and cheers.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yay.
Come hang out with me on Instagram at Hustle and Healing Podcast for more real talk, laughs, and support. You can also catch the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. So be sure to subscribe, follow, and leave a review if you're loving what you hear. And do me a favor, share this episode with a fellow mom who needs to hear it. Keep hustling, keep healing, and don't forget to reheat that coffee. Again, see you next time.